Here's a turbo upgrade that I did to an Audi S4 2.7T. If you remember a while back, I did an upgrade very similar to an Audi All-Track, I think it was. It's pretty much the same concept, except the All-Track has different turbine housings that are a little more complex to machine. But check this out, it's a pretty cool upgrade. The factory compressor wheel is only 31.4 millimeter. We upgraded this to a 42 by 56 millimeter billet 4x4 blade billet compressor wheel. I also upgraded the turbine wheels on these. So the factory turbine wheel is about 38 millimeter. This is a factory compressor wheel. You can see how small that thing is. It's about 31.4. This right here is the upgraded 42 millimeter compressor wheel. So it's like 11 millimeters bigger than stock. This is a turbine I use inside this upgrade. 44.4 by 50 millimeter, and that's a 9-blade turbine with the closed plate. The closed plate is supposed to be flow better than the open. So it went from 38 millimeter to 44.4 on the turbine side. I made a custom plate to machine the turbine housing, and this is how the machining turned out after I machined the turbine housing for the turbine wheel. We also balanced both assemblies and did all the machine work. So there's a lot of work involved in these. I spent most of last Saturday just machining both of these turbine housings, which required a custom plate, which I had to make work for both of these, because the one plate wouldn't work for both until I kind of cut it out enough to work with that. Inside these don't have compressor housing O-rings. They get like silicone together on the plates. The plates get machined for the compressor wheel because we went to a 56 millimeter extruder. The turbine housings are still kind of small, but I think they're like 5 cm or something. There is a trick to putting these together. You want to put all these bolts and tabs on the housing, and then you slide in the cartridge. You pull them back so you can slide the cartridge in, and then you tighten them all down. There's also a trick to remove these pieces here, and that's by, don't worry about loosening it at the bolt, but you could take a hammer and hit this end of the tab and it will loosen the bolt for you. I had one customer a while ago, maybe 2 years ago. He bought a rebuild kit and he couldn't get the bolts off because they strip when you try and use the open end wrench on it. So he just put it back on the car even though it was blowing oil and returned the rebuild kit. Well, the way to fix that is you just take a hammer and hit the ends here and it'll loosen all the bolts. It's always worked for me, and I never had a time where that didn't work. These tabs are supposed to go on this way so that when you tighten the bolt, the tab will compress up against the bearing housing. These right here are installed incorrectly, so these, when you tighten the bolt, the tab will move away from the bearing housing, so they need to be flipped upside down so that when you tighten them, that it will hug against the bearing housing. And another thing is, to get the compressor housing off, you have to remove the turbine housing first, and then you use a press to press off the shaft and assembly through and whole bearing housing through the compressor housing. That helps get the silicone unstuck from the compressor wheel. So a lot of people that remove these will damage the compressor wheels because they don't know how to remove it by using a press properly. If you plan to do an upgrade with these, it's the best option to machine the original turbine housings because they have it's a special alloy material. I think it's probably got some nickel in it, but I'm not really sure. It cuts different than any other material I've seen. but it doesn't crack as easy as the cast iron turbine housings. So if you plan to do an upgrade, it's best to use the original equipment from the vehicle unless it's just all cracked to pieces, but that's very rare with this turbine housing on this model turbo. So there also is another upgrade option for this. That would be if this got completely sleeved and a pipe was pressed into here, and this was sleeved and a pipe was pressed into here, then we could go with the 51 millimeter compressor wheel. You have to think that's 20 millimeters larger than the stock one, 51 by 62 by 66. This upgrade should get you, the one with this compressor and turbine should get you to like 550 to 600 horsepower. If you do that one, I don't know, there's no telling. I don't know if the turbine housings would support that compressor wheel or not. But if they would support the compressor flow, then most likely you'd be able to get into the 800 plus horsepower range. One thing that you do need if you do plan to do this upgrade is that you definitely need the upgrade rebuild kit, because even on the stock turbo, if you just up the boost to anything above stock, I think it's like 14 pounds, the turbos just start to fail because they have a really weak design thrust bearing from factory. It's a web design. So if you go with the upgrade kit that we have, then you can run those really hard. I had somebody running 24 pounds. He made 366 horsepower on a single. There's also another guy from Greenland that I talked to that made over 400 horsepower on a single. But you definitely need that upgrade 360-degree rebuild kit to be able to push the turbos hard, even if they're just stock turbos. So I'll go ahead and link to our rebuild kit below if you need to buy that. That helps support the channel. I do have all the other parts in stock too to do the upgrade, but I don't know that I really want to sell those because most people don't really know how to do the machining and all that stuff like that. And if they do, usually they don't understand something and then they break it and then they send it back. So then I basically lose all my money on that stuff. So I prefer not to sell that stuff, but if you do want it, I might sell it to you, depending if you are like a turbo shop or something. But thanks for watching this video on the upgrade. I don't know that I want to do this upgrade ever again, but I wanted to show it to you. So I might do it, I don't know. If you feel like you want to ask me about it, you can send me an email to my email address, turbolabamerica@gmail.com.